Okay, I'm going to show you how to do a couple of the problems on the homework assignment. I've got problem one, return on investment. This is what your problem is. I'm going to look at project A and show you how to do project A. So for return on investment. Okay, so the question is asking for a 3-year cutoff period and a 6-year cutoff period. So if I were to look at a 3-year on this line and a 6-year on this line, okay. Well, the net, let's say you had a lemonade stand and you spent $5 on all of the materials and supplies that you needed to make lemonade, and then you ended up selling $10 worth of lemonade. Well, you only made a profit of $5, right? So that's the net. It's $5 net profit. Well, it's the same principle here. So return on investment, if you are doing the following the formula, grab it real quick. The formula is the net divided by the project cost. So again, thinking about your lemonade stand, if you receive $10 in sales, but you spent $5, your net is going to be $5, right? Because it's the returns minus the cost. That's your net. So we're going to put that on top, and we're going to put the project cost on the bottom as well. So for 3 years, for project A, we're looking at this column here, 3 years worth of cash flows or returns, we're looking at 4, 4, and 4. So that's equal to, so let's do the cash flow column, right? For 3 years, it's going to be equal to this plus this cell plus this cell, right? And we're going to get $12,000 in cash flows. Our project cost, let's go our cost, PC we'll call it, that is obviously equal to 10,000, so it's equal to that cell, right? So our net, let's do our quick calculation of our net, is going to be equal to the 3 years, this minus the project cost, right? So the formula is that minus the project cost. Get a net of 2,000. So now, again, looking at our return on investment formula, it's net divided by PC. So here we have net, here's PC. So net divided by PC is equals this cell divided by this cell, and we get a 20% return on investment ratio. Okay, so this is ROI. ROI for 3 years. 6 years, same thing. We're looking at the cash flows of all 6 years then. So then we're going to say equals the sum of, we'll just drag these cells here. You can see it populates the formula for me when I do that. And then I'm going to close it with parentheses, and we get 24,000. The project cost stays the same. It's 10,000. So our net is going to be equal to cash flows for 6 years minus the project cost. We get a $14,000 net. Our return on investment then is for at the end of 6 years equals the net divided by the project cost. 140% return on investment using a 6-year cutoff period for project A. Okay, that's how you do return on investment. So we need to do it for all 4 of these projects. Okay, let's look at the next question, payback period. Okay, so if we look at the simple calculation of payback period, we're going to do both for each project, and I'll do the simple calculation for project A for you. So the simple calculation of the payback period is equal to the initial investment divided by the net cash flow, but we're using an annualized amount. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that real quick. So we'll say project A. So the II, initial investment, and we also need to figure out what the cash flow but we want to make sure that this is annualized. Okay? So make sure that we're calling this an annualized cash flow. And so for 3 years, what that means is we're going to look at the cash flows and we're going to divide it by 3. So annualized, so total. So we'll go total cash flows, and then we'll go number of years. So we can get an annualized amount. Okay, so total cash flows is going to be equal to the sum of what? For project A, it's the first 3 years of cash flows, right? So we get $12,000. Number of years in this case is 3. So our FV for 3 years, let's put 6 over here. Okay, let's do our total cash flows for 6 years. I don't want these to be a number. I want them to be just a number. All right, and then total cash flows for 6 years is going to be equal to the sum of what? The cash flows for the 6 years, right? 24,000. So the FV in this case, let me move these. Let me move these down. So the annualized amount for 3 years of that equals the total cash flows for those years divided by 3. In this case, it's going to be 4,000 because it's the same amount every year. So the average is going to be the same. In this case, it's going to be different, right? In this case, it's going to be different. And in this case, it'll be different because there are different amounts of cash flows each year. So the annualized amount over the 3-year period will be an average, right? And so here we're looking at equals this divided by the number of years, 6, right? So we get 4,000. So our future value annually is $4,000. So that's going to be here. And in this case, this one is going to be here. So our initial investment doesn't change. That's going to be the project cost. This is going to be the same. That doesn't change. So whether we're looking at a 3-year or a 6-year, right, or a 6-year, doesn't matter, okay? So what we're looking at is II. So the payback period then is going to be equal to the initial investment. If we remember our formula, says it's initial investment divided by future value, and in this case, that is equal to this divided by the future value. We get 2.5 years is the payback period. For the 6 years, it's going to be exactly the same because all the numbers were the same. So that's the simple calculation. Again, that's the least precise method. Now I'm going to show you the better payback period calculation. And that is where it equals A plus B over T, where A is the last period with a negative cumulative cash flow. B is the absolute value of the cumulative cash flow at the end of period A. And C is the cash flow. I can't read it with that thing in the way. Anyways, we'll get to that. So what we need to figure out then is we need to set up a chart that says, okay, year 1, we're going to look at the cash flows each year. Year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6. All right. And what do we want to figure out here? We want to figure out the cash flows, right, for each year. So we've got an initial project cost. Let's start a column that says that, right? Initial cost, right? It's going to be the same. It's only going to be at the very beginning. We're going to bring that down equals the project cost, right? We're going to bring it right there. The problem is this is positive. And when we're talking about cash flows, it's actually a cash outlay, right? So we're going to change this to a negative. So I'm going to go times -1. We're going to make that negative $10,000. That's our initial cost, right? And then we're going to put our, I'm going to go over here, I'm going to write cash flows, right? And so in this case, we have, let's do our beginning cash flow, and then we're going to put our ending / cumulative. Okay, I'm going to make this column just a little bit longer. So there we go. So we got 10,000. Our beginning is going to, in this case, equal to this, right? Cash flows then. So for year 1, we're going to copy these and bring them down. I'm going to Control C. I'm going to put them right here, Control V. Put our cash flows for year 1 through 6, right? In this case, they're all the same. In the case of Project B, they're all going to be different, etc., right? Okay, so our ending or our cumulative cash flow then is going to be equal to the beginning plus the cash flow for that year. So at the end of year 1, we had a cash outlay of $10,000. We got $4,000 of cash flow returned to us. So our cumulative cash flow amount is then negative $6,000. That's how much more we need to make up to make this, to get our payback period, right? To make the project actually break even. Okay, so we're going to bring this value and we're going to populate it with the beginning of year 2 because that's the same thing, right? Ending and beginning are the same in this case. So equals the ending balance. So we're starting year 2 with a negative $6,000 cumulative cash flow because we ended year 1 with that, right? We're going to add our cash flows for year 2, which is 4,000, right? So we add these two together, equals that plus this, and we get an ending cash flow cumulative balance of negative $2,000. Okay, so now if you look, I've got the formulas up here, right? The formulas here. So now that I can just do this and drag down, and it'll apply the same formula here. This one I only have one instance. I'm going to do this one more time. So this equals the ending balance from year 2, right? Now I've told Excel at least 2 instances what it's doing. It knows what to do for the rest of them. I can just drag down from the corner. Okay, and so we've built out our cash flows with our cumulative cash flow chart, right? So now we can see, now we're looking for A, B, and C, okay? And if you remember from the formula, let me bring it over. A is the last period with a negative cumulative cash flow. So the last period, so in this particular instance, the last period with a negative cumulative cash flow is year 2. So A is going to be equal to 2. Okay. B is the absolute value of the cumulative cash flow at the end of period A. Well, we know period A is 2. What's the absolute value of the cumulative cash flow? It's this, but the absolute value. So that's 2,000, right? And then finally, C is the cash flow during the period after A. So the period after A is period 3. So what's the cash flow during that year? Right here. So that is going to be 4,000. And then calculating payback period and